seeing all of it.
The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Zakash here again with my co-host Tulio Siragusa, and we've got a special guest today who we'll introduce in a moment. So leadership today requires more than strategy and execution. It requires connection, and 92% of employees say empathy remains undervalued in leadership, according to the State of Workplace Empathy Report, even though empathy directly impacts engagement, retention, and performance. So in industries that serve local communities where trust and relationships are essential, empathy becomes even more critical. And today we are exploring the role of empathy in leadership, what it looks like in practice, especially in the framework of a franchise business, and how leaders can use empathy to strengthen both culture and business results. Tulio, introduce our special guest today. It is the day after tax day here, and we're so happy to have him on after hitting that deadline. He said he had people working 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning last night.
Yes. Pleasure to introduce our guest. And I just learned something new today, that today is New Year's Day.
Happy New Year.
So
if you're in the tax business.
If you're in the tax business, today is New Year's Day. Our guest today is Alberto Ortiz. He's the CEO and president of ATAX. Alberto brings 18 years of experience in the tax industry, including a decade at H&R Block, where he held leadership roles such as district general manager, regional director, and vice president of Latin operations. He supported more than 2,700 offices in that role. Today, he leads ATAX, which is a tax business service franchise focused on serving local communities, guided by a mission of having fun, improving lives, and a vision to become the largest tax franchise in the United States by 2032. Nothing but lofty goals here. Alberto, welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast. We're looking forward to learning from you today.
Thank you both.
So, Alberto, empathy is a word that's kind of often gets used, and I'm glad, thankfully, more so lately than decades ago. But it's not always maybe clearly defined for people. In your experience, leading large teams across different markets, how do you define empathy in leadership, or what does it look like in action for you?
Yeah, great question. And I will go back to one of my best mentors and leaders that I had several decades. She really helped me understand the difference for me between empathy and sympathy. And she was very empathetic and understanding, getting to know her team. That to me has always been very important on building relationships with my teams, building relationships, and now with our franchisees, is getting to know them, understanding where they are from, and not being with them, right, in the misery or in those downfalls, but truly understanding and listening to what is the concern, what are they going through. And I come from a franchisor, but I also have been a business owner. I've been in their shoes, so I understand what they're going through, and how do they have that perseverance, which is to me one of the most important elements of any business owner to really overcome obstacles. But I think the more that you are hand in hand working with them and you're by their side, but not commiserating with them, then truly being there to support them and help them be successful.
Hey, let's empathize real quick with what they were going through yesterday. Tell me a little bit about what is those last, many hours of a day on tax deadline day?
It is, in some cases, 24 hours a day. So we had several of our largest offices that they start early in the morning and they are until midnight, right? Because taxpayers had until midnight to transmit those last minute returns. And our franchisees are amazing. Their tax pros are amazing. Our support team is just godsend. We have several team members in the East Coast, and they were up to 2 and 3 in the morning because we have franchisees in the West Coast. So anytime they need something, it's like the last thing you want is your support line not being there. So I'm very thankful, very grateful for our amazing support and then our amazing franchisees creating fanatical fans out there.
Love it.
So you've run pretty large distributed teams, 2,700 offices. How do you maintain empathy at scale like that? What's that like?
Yeah, and one of the things that I've learned is being available, being very transparent with the team, my teams and my franchisees. They know our family, they know my wife, they know my kids. But it's also about not saying the right thing, is doing the right thing. And our franchisees, and even when I had teams of 2,700 offices, is that anytime they needed something, and especially your top performers, when they need something, they need something. So I could be at dinner with our family, or I could be anywhere. They can set up time in my calendar and connect with me 365, 24/7. So I think that part of, one, being transparent, two, doing the right thing, but then being available is critical, especially as a business owner when you need something. And then that same service mind, it goes across the entire team. So whether it's an operations or marketing, the entire team. And what I look for is those individuals, not so much talents, but because the skills I can teach, right, is, are they service focused? Are they servicing to ensure that we have happy, successful franchisees? The rest of the stuff I can teach them, right? We have systems and processes that they can learn those things.
How has that evolved for you? I'm curious about, in terms of your own leadership style, when it comes to empathy, how has that developed in you? And then how do you help others? You say you teach, but sometimes empathy is not just something you quickly pick up. Is there something in particular that you have found that helps people step into it more, maybe from your own personal experience? If you could share that with us.
Yeah, great question. I think number one is maturity helps, right? Having great mentors that you can talk to, having great people that I always love, and I always say that I want people that can tell me the truth and respectfully, right, challenge me. I'll give you one example is in my younger days, before all the white hair started creeping in my beard, I was ignorance on fire. Like, to me, I've always been very driven, very competitive, but in my younger years, it was this, maybe despite of people, right? It was like, I need to get the number. We need to win. We need to be number one. And one of the managers, and this is back in the Radio Shack days, I remember they were like, "Do you even know anyone on the team?" And it really, again, and this person I greatly respected, because they were never a yes person. They always respectfully challenged the norm, and it really helped me think and be like, who is the team? And that's where I started doing get to know yous, of getting to know my team, both from a personal standpoint and professional standpoint. I'm a big thinker. I'm not a feeler. So that's a weakness of mine. So then that helps me connect to people when they need a little more feeler moments, and be more empathetic there, or if they're a thinker, connecting better.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, as a young person, I think the process of maturation is really your ability to empathize. I mean, take on more perspectives and stuff. And so, we kind of struggle with that when we're young. Where do you see leaders most often struggle when it comes to empathy?
Connecting with the field, connecting with teams. I have been very blessed on not only teams and open for feedback, but also when it comes to now we have a national advisory council that, again, I'm not looking for yes. I'm looking for where can we improve? Where are some of the tough feedback that, as they say, like feedback is a gift until you open it, right? But from those challenging conversations, that's how we get better. That's how we learn. So I love having advisory boards where, whether it's in leadership and now in our franchisees, where I can meet with them, connecting with our top performers. Last week or week, probably 10 days ago, before the craziness of the last week of tax season, I was reaching out to some of our top performers, and it's like, how's it going? What are you seeing? Right? They're much closer to the clients than I am anymore. And getting that feedback on what's working, what's not working. And then that helps us set foundation for what we're working now the next 8 months in preparation for the following tax season.
I think what I heard is sometimes it's hard to move beyond the transaction. I get tripped up with that too. Sometimes we get so focused on what we need to do that you often forget that there's people involved and how they go about it. They might need to take a little time to think it through. And so I hear you. That's a hard one. I mean, I get challenged with that too sometimes, so how do you know when that's happening for you? Is that the purpose of having your advisors? You have someone you work with that like keeps you honest, so to speak? Because a lot of times in small businesses, there's no one to keep them honest, right? Yeah. You have a big business, you got a board, you got advisors, they kind of remind you like, what are you doing? But in a small business, sometimes there's no one keeping you honest. So what do you suggest people do to make sure they have a checkpoint with someone or somewhere?
Exactly. Find a mentor, find someone that can be honest and give you feedback, right? It's like sometimes we have sounding boards, and they're great partners, and they're like, you can do it. Sometimes you need like, hey, you know what? This sounded rude, or this didn't come across correctly, or how are you connecting with the people, or do you understand what they're going through, whether it's economy or lifestyle or personal lives. And I've been very blessed to, whether it's in our small business or in the corporate role, have people that I can count on. But yeah, if you don't have someone, there's great organizations as well that you can join. But yeah, find someone that could be a good sounding board that can give you honest feedback on how you're being perceived by others, and then how empathetic others perceive you as well.
So on this show, we like to talk a lot about systems and not just how you can scale, your financial growth, but how you can scale things like empathy, and compassionate care, and what kind of systems can you put into place in it? Because it's a really, when you step back from franchises, you really want to kind of put all these systems in place, but you also don't want to leave them, completely devoid of that empathy. When it comes down to each of your locations, you'd love for that to kind of shine through. Are there any kind of systems or practices that you've seen that can work to ensure that empathy is really consistently, spread throughout a franchise or through your systems?
Yeah, so I think number one is having regular touch points. I've talked about the getting to know you forms. Again, I've been using this for 25 years now, where simple sheet of favorite snacks, again, how do you like to be recognized? I remember, and this was, again, probably more than a decade ago, I was in a meeting and I recognized this leader in front of everybody, and I thought I was doing the great thing, and I'm like patting my back and recognizing her. And she pulled me aside and she was like, that was the most embarrassing thing in my life, because she liked to be recognized privately, not publicly. And so that updated my sheet, right? Of how do you like to be recognized? Do you like to be recognized yourself or your team? So for me, like, I don't like any recognitions. I like my team or my company to be recognized, right? So understanding that and understanding where they are coming from is so important. And then I think having those touch points, whether it's if you have one employee, sometimes you were saying earlier about the transaction, you go, and you never stop and say, how are you feeling, right? How is the business going? Where can I improve? What do you like? And I think that will drive also engagement, because then you're truly connecting, listening, And then depending on the feedback that you get, then take an action. We do an annual convention with all of our franchisees. And this I actually learned from John Hewitt, the great granddaddy of franchising. And what I do now is during our conventions, I have my notebook. I sit in the back of the room and we just take notes. Our franchisees give us feedback on how they're feeling. And sometimes there are a lot of emotions. Sometimes there's like laundry list of things. Then after convention, we basically break it down and we say, okay, what are the things we're going to do? We're going to work on 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 90 days, a year, 2 years. And great things come from our franchisees, right? Great ideas don't come from the top. The great ideas come from our people, whether you have one employee or you have thousands and thousands of employees. And I think that will, from an empathy and an engagement standpoint, it will pay it forward thousands of times.
I love what you said because it really highlights the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is, someone tells you, I don't like to be recognized in public, and you just acknowledge it. Okay, but you still do it. Empathy is actually adapting to meet people where they are, changing the way you do things, which is a whole nother thing. Now, you got 150 locations today. You're planning 65 more just this year coming up. When organizations grow quickly, I think it's safe to say that's pretty quick growth, right? Maintaining culture can become a challenge. So how do you ensure empathy remains a priority as the business scales?
Yeah, so number one, having great processes and systems in place. So that way execution stays consistent and improves. And our system continues to improve from our franchisees. Same thing as we scale, then we'll also be scaling our team. And I'm looking for those team members that are servant leaders that will connect with franchise owners and will have empathy to understand where they're coming from. Because what I don't need is bringing in a consultant or someone in operations, and a franchisee goes, well, things are bad and the economy and everything, and they're like, I know, I feel bad for you. Like, that is not going to help them, right? That it's gonna drown them in that misery. Versus, you know what, I hear what you're going through. I appreciate your feedback, and then let's talk about things that we can do. And that way, that will drive that perseverance that is so needed in business owners nowadays. So I think that's that consistency of the right processes in place, continuing our onboarding process. So that way, whether we're onboarding 1 or we're onboarding 65 or we're onboarding 500 at a time, and then just having the right people in place that execute, but also have the same alignments when it comes to core values of our company.
That alignment in core values. So how do you hold leaders accountable for demonstrating empathy or something? Something goes sideways. How are you handling that kind of situation? As those arise, because they always do every now and then, right?
Oh yeah, all the time. So I think one example is I was talking to one of our operations director, and we were talking about a franchisee and their performance, and basically the summary was they are not doing something right, or things are bad. So I took a step back, and it was really about what are our 3 growth imperatives, right? So it's always about blocking and tackling. And in our company, our 3 growth imperatives are open locations, create fanatical fans, so getting more clients, and then retaining more clients. And then the last one, and the most important one, is happy, successful franchisees. So this franchisee was clearly neither happy nor successful. So then we went back to the basics and said, well, what is their personal goal? This franchisee that you're talking to, what is their personal goal? They didn't know their personal goal. And I said, well, great. Well, it sounds like this is the end of this conversation. Sounds like you need to find out what their personal goal is, because if not, how are you helping them drive business goals? Because personal goals drive business goals. So how are they going to improve their business if we don't even know what motivates them, right? So then they had that conversation, and it was complete 180 on the next one-on-one with this franchisee. We were coming from a standpoint of, I'm not going to tell you how to fix your business. I want to understand why you joined this business, because apparently I forgot. And then based on that, then let's talk about what things you can do differently to then achieve that personal goal. And again, the light bulb was it was immediate, and then it was great. I love to see those turnaround stories where we're truly helping people be happy and successful.
Yeah, I love seeing the light bulb, like you said, go off sometimes when you hit on the why portion of things, like, why are you doing this? And then you actually get there with someone. You kind of see them, you literally almost see like that light bulb go off in the middle of that conversation. I want to point something out to our audience. Like, we're talking about systems in this segment. Anytime you hear like a feedback, part of feedback, that is a part of a system, is the feedback loop. And so Alberto, he mentioned earlier, they have the annual convention, and what do they get out of that? They got a whole bunch of feedback out of it, and they're able to act on that. And you may not think of that as part of a system, but it is. This is bigger over, arching system where they're getting feedback loop. And then this last story, you're kind of talking about another form of feedback in there. So anytime you see like some type of feedback, that's one of the components of a system. So a system's coming in play there. And it's usually one of the most empathetic parts of a system is that feedback thing. And the other part is really around that purpose, like we were just talking about. And I know we want to jump into purpose here a little bit, Tulio, so I won't step on your toes on this as you.
No, I think I agree. I also think it's important to highlight something you guys do as it relates to that. I think we kind of talked about it, but it's so worthy of attention. Most people who put on a convention or conference, they're there to get some ROI out of it, right? They have a vision, a mission, want to convey information. We got to get people to do a call to action. And it's important, but you're sitting back there taking notes about what can we do better, listening. And that curiosity, I think that is ultimately the ultimate level of empathy. It's like you're more curious about what can we do better to serve these folks better. I think not enough companies do that. Like, be curious. Don't think you got it all figured out. Learn from the people you're serving, because they'll tell you they're the ones drinking the Kool-Aid. You're manufacturing the Kool-Aid. Remember that. You're manufacturing. Okay, let's go into the.
Well, and just to add to that is I have been part of big organizations, and I remember there was an organization. There was two things that I recall. And I won't name those organizations, but one of them was they got rid of these legacy awards. And when I joined this company, it was like these clocks. And if you were 15 years with a company, you got a clock. And I was like, what is the big deal with this clock, right? But when I was talking to the associates in this company, this clock meant a lot. Like it was a fancy clock, but it was also like this legacy of like, I've made it 15 years, right? And nowadays getting 15 years out of anyone, it's amazing. But the company decided the clock, which again, maybe it costs $100, maybe it costs $200, after 15 years of client service was not worth anymore. And the lack of engagement, and the reason was we spent so much money on these clocks that we're not getting anything from it. I'm like, you just got 15 years of legacy. And then it actually did the opposite. It was unempathetic. People lost engagement, and they were like, well, if you don't care about me, then I'll go somewhere else. Right. And even last year in our convention, I remember sitting down, and one of the things that was obvious was like website coming up. And I pulled a couple franchisees, and I'm like, tell me what's the issue with the website? You click in here, it doesn't work. You click in here, it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, apparently this is a big issue. We need to fix this, right? And this year, our marketing team did an amazing job getting feedback from franchisees. We relaunched a brand new website, driving SEO and AI and everything. And I love hearing from franchisees during the year. It's like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but oh my gosh, so many clients are finding me for the first time, and I've been here for 17 years, and they found me through the website or Google or anything. So, but again, it wasn't me sitting down with the board and saying, what can we come up with next, right? They are the closest to the clients. The most important element of any business is the client. They are the ones paying the bills. And then the franchisees or your employees are the closest to the client. So listening to them is so critical, because if not, you're also ignoring the client as well. So
yeah. We got two audience questions. The first, before we ask the one from YouTube, because that one's going to lead us into the next segment, let's listen to the one from LinkedIn. It says, in a world of AI and automated tax software, can empathy be the secret weapon that keeps clients coming back to a real person? That's a great question.
Yeah. So I always say, when franchisees, they new franchisees come in and they're like, well, in this world, everybody can do their taxes online. And I'm like, well, that is a great perception. Still about 60% of taxpayers still decide to go somewhere and pay someone to file their taxes. But the other thing is, our franchisees and our tax professionals, they are like psychologists, right? It's like, there's two things that describe that interaction in the office. And I say it's hugs and kisses. And it's not literal hugs and kisses, but it's like, it's that one interaction. This person knows more about you than most people in your life, right? They know everything that's been going on, but they also, because they know so much, they can find those missed deductions. And it's like, hey, have you considered, or I heard you were doing this, or X, Y, and Z, right? To maximize. But it's really about that, creating that fanatical fan that if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, right? And if you miss information putting in, because you're not open and you're not getting those hugs and kisses like you get in ATAX, then yeah, you can miss a lot of money. And that's a big differentiator of why people still go. More than 60% still go to an office and file their taxes.
Once you've been audited once, your accountant becomes more important than your rabbi, your priest, or your guru, because you never want to get that again.
But it's like, it's
true.
From
personal experience, you would never want to go through that again. Okay,
but you do go through these. Your accountant kind of sees your life, unfolding right there. And you got your kids, you got inheritance or something. You've got all these different major life events that happen in there, and it is so many ways you can just kind of connect over some of these.
I prayed for my accountant to live long. All right, let's go into the next question, because it really speaks to the question of purpose, and the role purpose plays. I want to preface this question a little bit with, there's a lot of research out there that talks to why purpose is so important, even for employees. They want to be part of something that's purposeful. It gives them a sense of satisfaction, and their work gives more meaning. And so in organizations that serve communities like you, empathy plays a big role in connecting people to that purpose. And you said that your purpose is have fun, right? So having fun. And this is really the appropriate question. I want to have the audience ask this question. Your mission is having fun. What does fun look like in such a serious industry? That's a great question. Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, and our mission statement is having fun, improving lives. And to your point, I've been in this industry for 18 years, and I remember I was in retail and other industries before, and I remember the reason I left those industries is because they were failing. Again, I was in Radio Shack, and biggest retailer in the world, right? And they don't exist anymore. So when I was looking for something new, someone said, how about taxes? And I was like, taxes? That is like the most boring thing in the world. I'm like super energetic, and I'm like, I want to have fun. But as I thought about it, I'm like, that's exactly what I was running away from. I was running away from the flash in the pan, and this is something that everybody has to do. But to your point, when you talk to people are like, oh, taxes. It's like, I don't want to talk about taxes. Hopefully I don't owe, or how much money am I getting? So number one, our mascot, because we have a mascot in ATAX, we have an eagle. So number one, if you have an eagle as a mascot, you're going to have fun, right? And our franchisees have fun, whether it's the mascot dancing in the front of the street, which makes them recognizable, or going into their community, into church or community or different businesses. And you want to stand out, right? You need to have something different than the thousands of other businesses in your local neighborhood to stand out. And it is something that we want clients we're not going to change the notion of what people perceive as taxes. But when you go to an ATAX, we want to make sure that we're explaining, we're educating, we're having fun with the clients, but ultimately we're also helping you improve your life, whether it's our franchisees and our tax professionals improving the lives of our clients, or us as ATAX ensuring that we have fun. Like when we go to convention or with our calls, like accountants are like the root, like they have a lot more fun than any other industry I have been in, especially because they work so hard for 105 days. But also we focus on how do we not only have fun with our franchisees, but how also do we help them improve their lives? And those two things are very important to us. So yeah, we have a lot of fun in ATAX.
So Alberto, let's get down to brass tacks for a second. How do you keep that purpose alive during challenging times?
Yeah, and I think it's number one is never, our core values are built in that mission statement of having fun, improving lives, right? So it could be, I'll give you one example. One of our core values is we find a way to say yes. And many times, right, when you ask something, you're like, well, no, because it's going to cost, versus let's find a way to say yes, right? Let's find a way to help the franchisee, help the tax professional. I had a franchisee in Colorado. She worked for one of our franchisees, super passionate, wanted to improve her life and her family's life, but they didn't have the finances to do that. Other companies would have said, well, sorry, you don't have the money, come back when you have the money, or find finances. We said, well, let's find a way to say yes. We actually financed her 100% her franchise fee. This franchisee just turned 30, just opened her third location this past tax season. It is actually one of our top guns. So out of 150 locations, she's in the top 25 in one of her locations nationwide. Just talk about, like my hair stands up, talk about like improving her life and improving her family's life, because we found a way to say yes. And the same thing, it's like we look at the lens through our core values, and then how are we executing that? And sometimes it's challenging. Like I get franchisees and my team gets franchisees, that we'll call them, or employees, and your immediate reaction, right, is like different, right? But if we look at the lens, at things through our lens of our core values, then at the end of the day, it might not benefit immediately, right? It didn't benefit immediately our company not collecting that franchise fee. But guess what? We focused on the 3 growth imperatives. That franchisee is super happy, super successful. They're creating fanatical fans, and they got 3 open locations much faster than any other franchisee in the history of ATAX. So
amazing.
Yeah, I love hearing. So if any of our listeners remember, we've had different loyalty brands, franchises come on here, and this is one of them, and they have that lens of having fun and improving lives through different verticals, completely different spaces. And I love seeing how it comes to life in each of these different spaces, and it always does. And it's kind of this, what really drives, I think, the kind of the higher purpose of what you do every day.
I think we've had every loyalty brand on here. We started with John Hewitt.
We'll have to put our own little like series, just so that people can, maybe we'll link all the episodes.
It could be the playlist, the loyalty brands.
Yeah, it'll be a playlist.
Yes, it's its own playlist. Absolutely.
Alberto, real quick, before we hopped on, we were talking about one of the things that surprised me was like these franchisees, they come from just different walks of life completely. You would expect, this might be someone who, they went to school, focus specifically on this, but that's not the case, right?
Yeah, no, so I mentioned, again, I've been 18 years in the tax industry. In 18 years, I have not even filed one tax return, not even my own. I trust with that, right? So about 50% of our franchisees have some.
Hang on a second before you get the IRS coming out.
Oh no,
You
I file my
the
returns.
tax, you just
I
didn't
don't file my own
prepare it
returns.
yourself.
I pay one of our amazing
I don't want
ATAX
that on
franchisees.
the work on any.
Julio, I got that. I didn't think you.
I did too. I was just like,
I have an EFIN, so I have to file every year. But no, I don't file my own return, right? I pay someone in ATAX. But yeah, half of our franchisees either have some type of tax experience, right? They either work for an H&R Block in the past, and then they were like, I want to do my own thing, or they had their own business, or they were an employee, or they took a tax school with ATAX. They wanted to learn, and so they love.
That's kind of what we'd expect, right? This is kind of the half of
the other half. Yeah, the other half. We have one franchisee in New York that she was a CMO of a company, amazing lady. Again, that company, same thing, a lot of challenges, a lot of turmoil. And then she loves helping people. She's an amazing marketer, right? This is not a tax business. This is a people business. The product that we do is taxes, but it's if you like people, if you like community, right? So we have Digna in New York that was a CMO. We have Jasmine in Chicago. She's an insurance, right? So they have a full-time insurance company that does amazing. And then insurance and taxes go hand in hand. Our largest office, they do real estate. So they're real estate agents. They serve, again, they work very, very hard for 105 days during tax season. And then they have a cross-marketing opportunity. Immigration lawyers, we've had several immigration lawyers or lawyers that joined the ATAX family in the last couple of years. So you don't have to be a CPA. You don't have to be an enrolled agent or an accountant to open a tax practice. What we are looking for is we're looking for CEOs of the business that they want to open their own business. They want to have a proven system like we have in ATAX, backed by John Hewitt with 57 years in the tax industry. And then what we're looking for them to do, again, some of them do taxes, but the majority of them don't. And then in fact, the least that they do taxes, the better, because they're not sitting down. They can pay someone to do an amazing job while they're more the CEO of their business. So
it's a good point. They're not getting caught up in the details of trying to do all that. They're able to market the business and spend time developing all those connections.
Exactly.
So Alberto, on the show, we like to talk about kind of love as a leadership principle and showing care, respect, and empathy is a part of this, of course. And I think loyalty brands, having fun, improving lives mottos, that's really, it's based in love. When you think of all these things and you kind of talk about the sort of virtual, hugs and kisses, not really physical, obviously, but the concept of, that care in there. So one question we always like to ask on this show is, what role should love play in business?
Yeah, the number one, it's family, right? And it is very personal. We have folks that are spending their life in a business to drive a bigger purpose, and we truly see it as a family. Again, when we talk about helping them improve their life, it's the same way that if my brother or my mom or someone related to us, they come to us and they want to open their business. Many of them actually are family members. We have several franchisees in Colorado that our first franchisee that opened in Colorado 5 years ago opened their first office. His cousin worked for him, and then his cousin ended up opening his own ATAX. So not only it's a metaphorical family, but we truly have family members working in different franchises, and that's amazing to see, especially as we continue to grow across the nation. And I'm a firm believer of, in my personal life and in business, of the 5 love languages. That's part of engagement. That's part of communicating better. That's part of the getting to know you that I mentioned earlier. So whether it's understanding what motivates the business owner, for the business owner, what motivates their employees, and the more engaged they are, the more happier they are, the longer they stay, the longer the retention. That helps retention in the business. So it plays on it. one after another. So to me, it's huge. And then we hug and kiss each other during convention, and when we see each other, and we have a lot of fun. So
exactly, you can learn a lot from European businesses. They hug
There
each
you
other,
go.
give each other kisses, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. It's very normal, depending where you are, Italy or
Yeah.
France. I love what you're saying too about the love language. I think there's so much that we can learn if we understood that about each of our colleagues. I mean, and I think it's kind of sad sometimes if a CEO's love language is words of affirmation. They don't usually get that many of them. So if you've got a CEO whose words of affirmation is their love language, once in a while, tell them they're doing a great job. Makes them feel better. So now let's give something for the listeners that they can grab onto like right away. We try to pick one thing. If they're going to remember anything, that one thing. If they want to bring more empathy into their leadership today, what is one practical step that you recommend they take right now, this week?
Get to know your team, get to know your team members, and truly get to know your team members. I have consistently done one-on-ones, even and don't cancel your one-on-ones. Again, I have the worst leaders that I have worked for. They have one-on-ones just to have one-on-ones. The best leaders, even if we don't have anything to talk about, they're connecting, right? They're reaching out and saying, "How are you doing? How are you feeling? What can I do?" Right? And one of the things that I learned many years ago, and regardless if you've been with me for 25 years ago or in different parts of my business trajectory, I always finish every call. It's like, what do you have for me? What can I do for you? Right? And that way, I always want to focus on serving and that servant's leadership. But it starts with making time, getting to know your team, have dedicated time where they can come to you and share, "Hey, here's what I have." And if they don't have anything, great. Again, how can I help you? How can I clear the path, right? To help your job be more efficient, because then you're serving someone else from that standpoint.
Wonderful. People want to learn about you, ATAX. Maybe, like you said, some people got unemployed and you don't have to be an accountant to open a ATAX franchise. How could they get to know you? Where can they reach you?
Yeah, so they can visit atax.com, ATAX, or if they're Hispanic, we call them ATAX. So depending on where they're from, but atax.com, you can learn more, visit any of our offices. In there, you can click on the franchise section and learn more about ATAX, what we are, to see if it's a right fit for you. And then for me, then you can find me in any other social media, LinkedIn, anywhere. Same thing with ATAX. If you go to atax.com or ATAX on LinkedIn, Facebook, you can follow our eagle, having fun and showing how we're improving lives.
Alberto, thank you for joining us. I love the one thing, so often leaders are focused on how can you help me instead of, how can I help you? And it's really flipping that kind of hierarchy around. So being in service to them. And thank you to our listeners for your questions. We always like to dive in on empathy on this show and the many different ways it can appear in your business, because it really is one of the keys to running a more blissful business. So thank you for joining us on the Bliss Business Podcast, and we will see you next time.